to Can't Let It Go. It is an audio PowerPoint party. My name is Matt, and I use he, him pronouns.
I'm AC. I use they, them pronouns.
I'm Mitch, and I use he, him pronouns.
Wow, it's Mitchell. Welcome back to the pod.
Are you the first returning guest? I think you are.
You tell me, but what an honor. My goodness, thank you.
Mitch is here because I texted him desperately the other day being like, I have a topic that we need to talk about, and we'll get there. We'll talk about it. But first, I need to ask AC all about All Things Go and how that was last weekend.
Okay, amazing. So if folks aren't familiar, All Things Go is a 3-day music festival that happens. They have locations in DC, New York, and now Toronto. But
Ooh.
The DC and New York weekends were last weekend, and I got to go. And Matt, the answer is it was absolutely delightful. It was my first time seeing Lucy Dacus live, and she did, in fact, cover Chicago by Sufjan Stevens, which I think was both an incredible and transcendent experience because Lucy Dacus has the perfect voice to cover that song. And like, I cannot believe that no other artist has done that at All Things Go yet, at least in the years that I've gone. So this was my third time going to that festival. And I've never heard anyone perform that before. And it was really, really good.
I feel like it would be a tradition for the namesake.
Right. Right. Exactly. But no, it was superb. My other favorites, so it was my second time seeing Kesha. And I think that there were two things that put it at a disadvantage, which is that one, the first Kesha show that I saw was one of my top 5 shows of my life so far. At the Zoo Amphitheater in Oklahoma City in 2017. It was a perfect setup. VIP tickets at the Zoo Amphitheater were only $50. It's an outdoor venue. It was July. We were in the pit. We were so sweaty. We were I was exactly the right amount of drunk. It was across the board a 10 out of 10 concert experience. And so that made Kesha's Sunday night closer set for the festival just a little disappointing. I think that I really loved some aspects of it. She came out swinging against Dr. Luke and explicitly talked about how she now finally owns the rights to her voice for the first time and played a lot of songs that she just has not played on tour. Naming that she's playing songs that she hasn't sung in 13 years. So it was good. However, Doechii was the set right before Kesha.
Oof.
And blew my fucking mind. It was so good. One of the best shows I've ever been to. Again, in my personal top 5. And just the energy differential between Kesha and Doechii was a really hard shift at the end. That's the negative things. Everything else about it was delightful. It was a very good weekend. One of the things that All Things Go is known for is it's a rain or shine thing, and it rains a lot in Maryland in September. And it only rained a little bit on Saturday and mostly was dry and delightful. I got to see Clairo and Marina, who I'd never seen before.
Oh, that's awesome.
As well as some smaller bands like the Aces and the Beaches. Just all in all, a incredible, extremely gay, extremely sapphic specifically weekend of music and fun, and it was a great time. Okay, well, that's my wrap on All Things Go. If you want to go with me next year, I might be into it. I also 35 and 3 days of festival, even at the pace that we did. I think we did a really, really good job of pacing ourselves and making sure that we weren't trying to run back and forth and making trade-offs and stuff like that. But my back hurts.
I can no longer do general admission, even standing inside at the anthem. I can't do it.
So one thing I will say is if you are someone who qualifies for ADA accommodations, the Merriweather Post Pavilion is very generous in the way that they do their accommodations. Often it means that even if you buy a lawn seat, you get access to certain sections of the pavilion and can have a seated chair. So big ups for Merriweather Post Pavilion. I actually saw some staff even in another area where there is not like concrete pad for seating, like working with people in the VIP section to like move them over so that people who were in chairs in the accessible section would still be able to like see the stage on one of the other stages. So like their staff, I've had really good experiences with the accommodations that they provide there. So
Cool.
big ups to them for that.
Well, hey, the reason we brought Mitch on is to be our token straight and tell us about football.
I can't believe we're doing a sports episode.
The thing is, I got a text from my husband, who is, as you both know, a very big football guy. And it just said, holy shit, they actually did it. And it was a screenshot of the front page of ESPN saying that Mike Gundy, the now former football coach at Oklahoma State University, had been fired.
Rest in piss.
And I immediately texted AC and I said, how do I not do an episode about this? And I was like, I have to text Mitch, I guess, so that Mitch can tell us what's going on. So, Mitch, because not everyone who's listening to this is going to know the coach of Oklahoma State University, who's Mike Gundy?
So, Mike Gundy is one of the most important people in the history of Oklahoma State University athletics and the university writ large for its entire history. He was the quarterback of the football team in the late 1980s when they were in a bit of a mini glory days with Hall of Fame running back Barry Sanders. He was the quarterback there. He was, at his time, the most decorated and successful quarterback in the history of the program. He then became the head coach of the Oklahoma State football team before YouTube was launched.
Great. Incredible.
In 2005 was his first season as the head coach of Oklahoma State after he had been the offensive coordinator most recently after that.
Despite that, still managed to go viral very quickly.
Yeah, and a couple years into his head coaching career, he had one of the more famous early viral clips during press availability, just absolutely berating a reporter from the Oklahoma City newspaper, where he gave the famous phrase, "Come after me, I'm a man, I'm 40," which I imagine you've heard a lot. And since that famous viral clip of that rant, he then went on to be a very, very successful football coach for Oklahoma State, leading this program through its unquestionable most successful period of success and relevance ever.
Yeah.
A lot of wins, a lot of very, very good players, a lot of big games, and a lot of almost opportunities to play for a championship.
This is my gripe with Mike Gundy generally, is that I recognize what he brought to Oklahoma State's athletics department. And also a lot of near wins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, the thing that, you know, when Jonathan and I would rant about Mike Gundy at home, is as long as he's given him a winning season, winning 6 games a season, going to a bowl, he's going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being true. The moment he was no longer winning 6 games a season, he was gone.
Yeah, and I definitely want to mention, talk about that in a moment. But I do want to say that I think in a way to be, I think, fair to him, he was a victim of his own success when it came to the expectations put upon the program.
Yeah.
Historically, Oklahoma State is not one of the premier programs in college football. They've had moments, but overall, a middling to subpar program historically. And under him, the program achieved new heights of sustained success that set the expectation every year to not just, let's have a good year, let's make a bowl game and maybe win more than we lose. It became every year Oklahoma State ought to be competing for a conference championship, if not for a national championship.
Which is, at least a large part of the time we were there, where we
Right,
were.
yeah.
Absolutely. We were in school during one of the heights of even the Gundy era.
Yeah.
We were in school for the single best team in Oklahoma State history.
Correct.
In 2011.
Which is, just to, again, for the listeners, the year that we we're one game shy, basically, of going to the national
Yeah.
championship.
I think it's also funny. It's worth mentioning that like the summer of 2011 is the summer that the three of us like really like became best friends. Like we all kind of knew each other before then. But it also meant that like the football season of 2011 is one like to the point of like, why are we talking about sports on this show? It's not just because Mitch knows a lot about it, but like I think for the three of us, that was like, I remember a lot of that football season of like spending that time with y'all. And like, I am someone who I will never cop to like pretending to be a sports fan. Like I'm not, I know a lot because I spend a lot of time with people who know about sports and I listen and I pay attention and I find it interesting. It's not my thing. I knew more about the team in 2011 than was ever reasonable for a person who would never watch sports if prompted independently to know.
Yeah. I specifically remember that was the summer that Wade and I moved to that like tiny apartment behind Qdoba.
Yeah.
And that fall we would like walk to games after pre-gaming in our apartment. I remember
that.
Yeah, several of our friends got asked by a cop like what they were drinking and got tickets for public intoxication. Underage. Yeah.
That season is the only time I've ever snuck alcohol into Boone Pickens Stadium. And I know, right? And it was for the Bedlam game that year where I'll never forget that night as long as I live, we absolutely thumped OU 44-10. Yeah, absolutely.
So you just told us about what an incredible boon, Gundy was to the Oklahoma State football team. What happened? Also, I have to explain the joke to people that don't know what I meant by boon.
And I thought you were segueing to ask me about that, so that I was just like, wait, what are you asking me about?
The joke is that it's Boone Pickens Stadium, billionaire booster of Oklahoma State for a long time. There you go. Anyway, what happened? What happened to Gundy?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. So the thing that just happened was that last season was the worst football season under Mike Gundy Oklahoma State's ever had. We won our first 3 games. Yeah, we won our first 3 games, our non-conference games. They're typically the easiest parts of your schedule. And then we did not win a single other game for the remainder of the season. Went winless in the conference, finished last in the conference. That never happened under Mike Gundy. And so there was definitely a lot of restlessness and discomfort from the fan base, a lot of questions about who the outstanding players in the future were going to be, because we can talk about this more later if you'd like to. But the whole system on how teams acquire players in college football has completely turned on its head in the last couple of years. Some of those changes are necessary, but out of control. Well, all out of control. Some of them are necessary and should be controlled better. But so there was a lot of unease and nervousness about the season coming into it. You have a question, AC?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, that's why I raised my hand.
Again,
something that really works in an audio format when you wait your turn and raise your hand to ask a question. So my question is, Mitch, is there some of this that is like about how the conferences have been reshuffled, or is this like something that is specific to the coaching thing here? Because something that like I have had a hard time keeping track of over the years now that I'm out of like social situations where knowing about football is a benefit, right? Like I know that like, so Oklahoma State when we were in college was Big 12 and then
Still are.
Okay, now we still are. Were we ever not Big 12?
No, but the Big 12 has changed a lot since we were there.
So they are those issues. I would say are not. They're not the same, but they are part of a larger overall phenomenon that is really transforming the way that college football looks and works. Which is just that the money is getting so absurd that these schools can collect through the TV rights deals that are negotiated at the conference level. So in order to agree to have the right to broadcast all of the football games, or at least most of the football games for a specific conference. Let's take the Big 12, for example. The TV partners will, the networks will compete for the contract. And so they will pay the conferences for the right to broadcast their games. The more powerful and relevant and good the football is in your conference, the more money your conference is going to get in a TV rights deal. The Big 12 right now is 3rd out of 4 at best, or maybe 4th out of 4 as far as the conference pecking order. So the conferences have realigned a lot in recent years as the different major conferences all kind of scramble to best position themselves for football relevance, but also for television relevance and television dollars.
Yeah, you might remember, AC, that a few years ago the Pac-12 dissolved, and that was
I didn't know that was a football conference, but thank you very much for having faith in me.
It was almost exclusively because of TV rights. And I mean, there was other factors going on there that I know Mitch probably knows about, but like, in fact, one of the like last ditch efforts to sort of save the Pac-12 was a TV deal that didn't go through. I think that's definitely part of it, but I think what Mitch is probably hinting at more is NIL.
Yeah, NIL and something called the transfer portal.
What is NIL?
So NIL stands for name, image, and likeness.
Oh.
It is shorthand for the players are getting paid.
I know what NIL is. I just thought in context maybe you were talking about something different. But no, I am a marketing professional. I'm familiar with NIL.
Well, and for the sake of the audience who has not been following this, and
that's why I asked. Yes.
So the college football players and the college athletes in general have been vying to get paid for their labor for years. And for a long time, schools and the NCAA, the body which purports to govern college sports, has stood in the way of that, mostly on the argument that college scholarships are compensation enough. That has recently been absolutely negated and rejected by the Supreme Court of the United States. The court has basically said schools don't necessarily have a responsibility to pay salaries or contracts to the players, but they cannot stand in the way of the players going out and doing business for themselves to profit off of their own likeness and their own fame. Basically, a college player has the right to engage in endorsement deals. When that law changed because of the Supreme Court, there was no regulatory framework of any kind in place to manage it. So it became sort of the backdoor by which schools, through their foundations, could raise money to pay their players, and therefore use the promise of NIL payments to recruit players. And then on top of that, now schools have no power to prevent players from transferring to different schools and then playing immediately for their new schools. So there's a recent wave of really, really increased player empowerment, player profitability, and player mobility. And some coaches really, really were early adopters and found ways to make that work for them. A lot of them have the benefit of a very, very wealthy and eager fan base who are willing to donate money for that purpose. But others were really, really stubborn about this is not what this should be. This is not how I want to build my team, and this just doesn't feel right. And Mike Gundy was absolutely one of the stubborn, slow to adopt and reluctant to change to the new landscape of college football. And that is largely credited with the rapid decline in on-field performance at Oklahoma State football.
All of the negatives of NIL deals and all of the above aside, it is not surprising to me that Mike Gundy was a curmudgeon about something changing.
He is nothing if not a curmudgeon.
I think of Mike Gundy as the guy that we would see at Shortcakes after the game that like people in Stillwater like thought of as family. And whenever I would complain about Gundy and people would be like, why is he even still there? I would explain like, it's because the like athletics department like sees him as a local family
Yeah.
member, right? Like he's not just a coach that is hired there. This is a town and a school that believes itself to be sometimes something more than it actually is, which, like, the reality is Gundy had a contract. That's why he was there, right? And he no longer has that contract, and that's why he's not there. Sure, did he have history there? Absolutely. He was a star quarterback, and he became a star coach. But the reality is it was a business decision, and that's how coaches have been treated, even in college football, in many other places. Mike Gundy was maybe not the only one, but was unique among college football coaches at OSU.
Yeah, he very much was. He was so deeply interwoven into the culture of Oklahoma State athletics and the university in general, and so much of college football is about identity politics, about your school loyalty as a proxy of who you are. And people from Oklahoma know this very, very intimately well, as we know all the baggage associated with being a Cowboy or a Sooner. And so while it's absolutely true that it is an employer-employee relationship governed by a contract, the existence and institution of Mike Gundy was very closely attached to people's understanding of what their fandom and what their school was.
I think that's right.
Well, and that's, I don't know. You and I were talking a little casually before recording that just being in Oklahoma has its own sort of identity-based problems, and that is a thing that exists in Stillwater, exists in like college football in the US, and especially at a school like Oklahoma State. I think there's a lot of aspects of being Mike Gundy and being the coach of Oklahoma State that are not just about football or even like the culture of Stillwater, Oklahoma. They're also about like American conservative culture, which is also just like flywheels right back into those same discussions.
And college football is such a fascinating nexus where these sort of political and racial issues kind of meet, because college football is a very, very conservative institution. The power brokers, the money, and the coaches are generally a very politically conservative group. Some of them are better at hiding their particular views than others. Mike Gundy had one particularly embarrassing incident a few years ago where he kind of put out on Main Street where he stood on things.
I mean, he wore you're talking about the OAN t-shirt thing?
Yes. Yeah, he was photographed wearing an OAN t-shirt, and then when asked about it said, "Oh, I just like the news. It doesn't have any politics. They just tell it like it is," and it was a big yikes.
He also threw a player under the bus around the same time.
Yeah, and where I'm getting with this is I'll have to do with this because it is an environment that is controlled by conservatives, but who also see now that players are so much more empowered that they also have to work very hard to keep a lot of young, black, newly rich, newly powerful men content enough to stay at their school. And Mike Gundy really ran up against OSU's star player at the time, a running back named Chuba Hubbard, who was an excellent running back at the time.
Killer name, by the way. That rules.
And he was unafraid to vocalize that he didn't approve of the message that Gundy's shirt wore, and that he was willing to kind of be a leader among the teammates to make sure that Gundy was. It amounted to nothing, but basically we're going to make sure our coach remains sensitive to our perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and it's worth saying that like this incident happened in 2020, and so like was already backdropped by a moment of like heightened racial tensions, which in Oklahoma was like, I mean, I was living in Oklahoma at the time. I cannot begin to describe. I mean, it was like this everywhere, and also like the specifics of the history of Oklahoma that you were alluding to earlier, Mitch, right? That is not just about like native removal. It is not just about being Indian territory, but is also about like the history of Oklahoma as potentially like that Booker T. Washington and others campaigned for it to be a black state, the first black state post Reconstruction or during Reconstruction. And like this kind of context, I think that is really interesting of like OSU in particular. I think like it was more often seeing players who were like from Oklahoma than than the OU program, which attracts more talent from out of state.
Mm-hmm.
They adjusted Gundy's contract as a result of the scandal and made his buyout a little less expensive and made it renewing year to year rather than a multi-year deal. But you know what made it blow over? Oklahoma State was really good the next year. Really stinking good. And this is kind of the way that it went with Gundy throughout years, that he would have moments where he would lose popularity and people would be losing patience. And then he would pull a season out of his ass where the Cowboys won 10 or 11 games or went to the Big 12 championship game, or in this case, had the best defense in school history and were 1 yard shy of probably making the college football playoff. And that came out of absolutely nowhere. No one expected it. And we kind of all stopped talking, except in the occasional offhand remark. We all kind of stopped talking about how, the OAN Gundy incident.
Yeah, I mean, and isn't that just how it goes in Oklahoma in a nutshell? We all just kind of eventually move on because there's simply just too much to unpack. And like
the thing about the way that story ended for me that always like upset me was about there was like that photo op essentially that like he and the player kind of like, kissed and made up or whatever. And the implication throughout the whole thing was that the players on this football team are kids. Like that was the way they were talked about through the whole like news cycle. And it really annoyed me because I was like, these are like, sure, they're young, but they are adult men, right? That have internality, they have opinions, like expressing an opinion as a student is like a pretty tried and true like way of getting things done in the world, but especially in the United States, especially at universities. It sucked as someone watching it from afar to see a player be basically like shouted down as a child and told that, he wasn't like respecting an elder, essentially. Like that's what it came off as to me.
Yeah. And an observation that I won't take credit for this. I heard this from a commentator I enjoyed named Bomani Jones. He talked about one of the great injustices of college athletics and football specifically is that there's such a double standard in how the athletes are discussed, that they're put into whatever category most suits the power at the time. They are kids when they are asking for responsibility and when they're asking for
rights
heard.
And like compensation.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. They're adults when they fail on the football field or when they are arrested. They are professionals when it comes to their practice schedule, their eating schedule, their performance on the field. They are student athletes when it comes to discussions of compensation. So whatever definition fits their purposes in that moment, that is the hat that will be assigned to them. And there's no consistency other than whatever takes away their agency.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said that it's about their with their student athletes when it's compensation, and I thought you were going to say they're professionals when it comes to their like schedules and all of that kind of stuff, or pre-professionals when it comes to that. But they're student athletes when it comes to their actual like academic education or like the ways that, the institution. Right.
But very much not. When it comes to their education, they are not student athletes. It is lowercase student,
correct,
all caps athletes, wink, wink, wink. Yes, they have a class schedule. But
which is why when I went to Stanford for grad school and all the players were like studying electrical engineering and going on to work at tech companies, I was like, this is foreign to me. I don't understand it.
At the end of the 2011 season, Oklahoma State played against Stanford in the Fiesta Bowl, and their quarterback was one of the best players in the nation, a man named Andrew Luck, who had just graduated with his degree in architecture.
Okay, I want to bring in a piece that I have about this. Yes, I have something to contribute here other than color commentary. With gratitude to Carl, who sent this to me, because did you read the athletics piece about Gundy's firing?
I did not.
Okay, so I do read the Athletic on occasion, but in particular, what I'm gonna read from, and I'll text it to both of you here in a second, is the top comment on the Athletics article about Gundy's firing. I'm not gonna read all of it because it just kind of like does like a breakdown of like the stats and like the depth of the problems in the program in terms of like records, going back to like, even with their prior win, OSU was on the brink needing a 20T at home to top 2-7 newcomer BYU to clinch the CCG berth, right? Like really getting into the gritty stuff here. The point that they make at the end is no one could have foreseen last year's 0-9, except perhaps if they'd known OSU would face 6 of the 7 teams that went 7-2 or 6-3. That schedule was unlucky, but Gundy's unsurprising, graceless handling of adversity likely made things worse inside the locker room. His rant at spoiled fans, then woe is we about payroll disparity, offered no path forward for the program, and losing to Tulsa left no point in hoping for a graceful exit by waiting out the year. Gundy's final moments evoked the Tolkien character Denethor in The Return of the King. The fan rant was his go now and die in what way seems best to you. His final flame out fits. So passes Denethor, son of Ecthelion.
Jesus Christ.
Bars.
I don't know. There's so much ego in that man. I have heard many passionate criticisms of the way that players are paid currently that are from people that believe that players should be able to get paid.
Yeah.
Right?
I have plenty myself.
Yeah. And I think Gundy's stubbornness and unwillingness to engage with the new reality is unsurprising to me.
Yeah. I think it's also like the paternalism on its
Yes.
face is what we have always both liked and disliked about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
The moment of I'm a man, I'm 40 is him behaving in a fundamentally paternalistic but
Mhm.
protective way, right? And in that moment, we were all on his side because that reporter was unfairly targeting a student athlete, right? And like being aggressive in that moment. And that young person was an adult, and the other opportunity would have been a coach who prepares their players for an aggressive press and gives them the tools to stand up for themselves, right? Like there is a different approach there. I don't know if that's the approach that any coach takes. I don't watch any post-game, things, but like, especially if you're talking to a player, if you're talking to your players as though they're going to go on and have professional careers, learning how to handle press is something that they need to do and lots of athletes struggle with, right? So like there could be value in approaching your program in a different way. I say as a media and marketing professional who spends my time thinking about that kind of stuff. But like the paternalism then turns on its face, right? Where he is this sort of character that does not think of his players as adults, as young adults, right? And thinks of them as kids to be talked down to.
And I do want to say this characteristic and this very fair and accurate criticism is not unique to my.
Oh no.
This is very, very prevalent in the culture of college football.
It's prevalent in the culture of football. This is the way that
yes,
even in the pro leagues.
But professional football, there's a whole lot less of the coaches speaking on behalf of the players. And you certainly get a lot more direct and interesting interaction between the players and the media. But a coach really coaching staffs and programs really restricting and tightly governing their athletes' interaction with the media is common across Division I college football. That's not unique to Gundy. His particular brand of stubbornness and sort of pride-driven prickliness of kind of y'all deal with it. Go cry about it, but this is what it is, and you can't do anything about it. That served Gundy for many years because what he did, he backed it up on the field. More often than not, his teams were competitive, and sometimes they were excellent. But I think it's a real reflection of everything stops being cute when you're no longer winning, and when you're losing, you don't even look like you're competing or fighting. 2 weeks before Gundy's final game as head coach, the Cowboys traveled to Eugene, Oregon to play the top 6 ranked Oregon Ducks and lost 66-3.
It was embarrassing, and I only saw the score.
I watched much of that game, and I won. Athletically, the Cowboys were so incredibly outclassed, but it didn't even seem like those athletes belonged on the field with the team they're playing against. And it was expected that Oregon would win and probably win comfortably. But the following week, Northwestern put up a far better fight against Oregon than Oklahoma State did. And so it was a very, very rapid and very embarrassing drop-off for what had been a really, really class of the country program for 2 decades.
It was especially embarrassing being married to a TU alum.
My partner is a UT alum, and so it's always been, here or there, horns down.
I don't even begrudge TU fans their celebration.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, truly, what reason would Oklahoma State have to dislike TU? Because until very recently, we'd never lose to them. So it's just like, hey, we enjoy your company. We'll play you every couple of years. We'll always win, and whatever. We can have some laughs. And now when they finally win, it's like, man, we suck.
One of the worst football games I ever went to was with Jonathan at TU. I forget who they were playing, but it was embarrassing to watch.
I was reminded of it because I said horns down. I had an experience maybe about a year and a half ago, and I think that this speaks to the cultural place that football generally, but college football in particular, holds in Oklahoma. It's worth saying Oklahoma does not have a professional college team. That is not to say that there are not people who are fans of professional teams in Oklahoma. There certainly are. But so I was on a work call or something like that. And in the same way that when we were at OSU, saying go Pokes or just doing the finger guns action, which is one of the things, unironically to celebrate something or sarcastically to be wahoo, it was part of the culture. Now part of my lexicon, because I spend a lot of time, as aforementioned, my partner went to the University of Texas. Carl, who's gotten a number of shout outs on this episode, thanks to his proximity to being my closest friend who cares the most about football in the DC area, and went to OU, right? So Carl is a horns down is his thing all the time. So now horns down has entered my lexicon as a thing that I regularly say when I dislike something. So picture it. I'm on a work call. I work at a large nonprofit with many folks who are from the East and the West Coast, not as many folks from the middle of the country, not as many folks who grew up in college football culture. And something that I dislike happens, and out of instinct, I say horns down. And everyone's like, hey, what does that mean? We have no context for this. And so I then had to try to be University of Texas is the Longhorns. If you don't like the Longhorns, you say horns down. That was the best I could do. I was I don't know. It's 11:24 p.m. on the East Coast, and University of Texas still sucks. That's not that's. I don't know how to communicate that to you.
I definitely, and I've said this to you before, I had to train myself out of doing go Pokes randomly, especially when I was in California. And making finger guns was just less chill
Yeah.
Like, just like generally less chill.
I know that this episode is generally about Gundy's firing, but I would like to hear from each of you, like, a favorite. Matt, you've really buried the lead here by not at all mentioning one time that you were on the paddle people your freshman year of college. I would
Definitely
love
was.
to hear from each of you, like, what's a favorite OSU football tradition that you have?
I mean, I like camped out for games and stuff so that we could get paddle people seats. If you don't know what paddle people are, it's a Oklahoma State tradition where a bunch of students carve paddles and paint them orange and smack them against the like foam barriers at the stadium. It's a great time, and it's like a unofficial like cheer squad essentially.
It makes a very, very loud percussive noise, and opposing players report that it is distracting, and it contributes to what OSU fans believe to be a pretty difficult environment for opposing players to come and play and succeed in. And so the paddle people contribute to making it a difficult place to come and play.
If you watch any OSU football game on television that is at home, you will see these people and you will hear the noise.
Yeah.
While we were there, I know they made several rules about when we could like paddle and when we could not.
Yep.
And I think they have made those rules even more strict in recent years. But like I was going to like women's soccer games and taking a paddleboard with us so that we could like
incredible
heckle the other teams. Like the paddle people don't just do football, it has spread. But yeah, no, that was definitely fun. But the reason I did it was to like hang out with what you all know as the village crew.
Yeah.
Like that to me was the tradition, was like going to games with the people that lived in the dorm with me and then like going to shortcakes afterwards. Like that was the tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it's kind of a new tradition, but it's one of the few reasons why I want to stay around till the fourth quarter in some of the games we've played recently. For the longest time, including while we were in school, in the break in between the third and fourth quarters, we would hear the tuba section and the marching band playing Arizona by Three Dog Night. That has since changed, and in the break in between the third and fourth quarter, the PA system will play Garth Brooks's Friends in Low Places. And the crowd,
the J.R. Murphy's classic.
If for those who don't know, Garth Brooks is an alumnus of Oklahoma State University and our most famous non-athlete to come through that school. And so, of course, his best song, Friends in Low Places, is a bit of an unofficial anthem for the students in the school in general. And it is one of the most fun songs to sing in a group that there's ever been. And so I do really love standing, linking arms around the people around me and singing Friends in Low Places very, very loud. That's a terrific time.
I dig that. The tradition that I most love is really a toss-up. I do love just Here Comes Bullet, and which is Here Comes Bullet. So Bullet is is part of like the mascot situation. I don't really even know how to describe it. Bullet is a horse. Bullet is a horse who, after we score a touchdown, Bullet gets to do a lap on the field. And I really like seeing that horse. But I do also think that the cannons being fired after we score is like so uniquely Oklahoma, to your point, Matt, about like making finger guns in different environments where gun culture is like not as prevalent, can be really disorienting to people.
Yeah.
And also I think that being like, oh yeah, they shot like a live cannon every time we scored at my college. Like, yeah, that's just normal.
I love the
Um,
chants after we score.
Yeah.
Like being in the crowd and like doing like the waving wheat and like singing Oklahoma and I don't know, the chanting USO when the flags go backwards, like
Yeah.
that stuff is like the thing I think about football games.
Another one that I love that's recent, and now that I have children, I have a son who's about to turn 4, and he loves Bullet. He's so excited to see Bullet and the mascot Pistol Pete. But something I did with him when he was very small, and something I do with my youngest son now, who's 4 months, is one thing they'll do most games as like fan participation is what they call the Simba Cam. And they will play Circle of Life from The Lion King on the PA, and they're encouraging families to take their small children and hold them up in the air, a la Rafiki holding up Simba. Jumbotron. I have yet to get one of my children on screen, which is
I believe in you.
the batty. But boy, do they look cute in their oversized headphones, just up in the air, looking around what's going on.
That's really funny.
That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I bring up traditions because it's, 50 minutes into the episode, and now I'm gonna finally mention the AC thing of it all, which is like the collective effervescence that it builds in the stadium, right? Like that joy, that feeling, right? Like is really strong. I will say that actually, I can't say that it's a tradition, but my favorite part of going to games in the 2011 season, aside from like the camaraderie and the friendship or whatever, was I still feel so emotionally connected. Like if it was rational to say that the hype video from the 2011 OSU Cowboy football season would be my personal hype music and walk-on music when answering that kind of question in like an icebreaker setting. Like if it was reasonable for me to say that, I would say it, because nothing gets me more hype than that. So video, our hype video at the beginning of the game was set to, was it a Brooks and Dunn cover of We Like It Loud? I can't remember. Okay, yeah, so it was a Brooks and Dunn cover of We Like It Loud. And it used scenes from Tombstone.
Big and Rich.
I think it was Big and Rich. I think you're right. I think you're right. Wrong country duo.
Big and Rich are the college football duo.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
In College Game Day.
So Big and Rich, We Like It Loud, and then there are scenes from Tombstone cut into the hype reel, and at the end is or right towards the end is the clip from Tombstone where he says, "You tell him hell's coming with me," and it just like
it's good.
Ooh, gives you the good chills.
And that part has stuck. That is still
okay.
The last thing.
Hell yeah!
Before the team enters the field, it's great.
Hell yeah!
What was that song?
Cowboys
Forever. The prairie wind touches my skin.
Can't find it. It's been scrubbed like Song of
No!
Like trying to find Song of the South. You can't find it.
I thought you were going to talk about the BC Clark jingle.
No.
For the listener at home, BC Clark is a jewelry store that is an Oklahoma City and Edmond-based jewelry store. And it turns out that in the Oklahoma City syndication area for television, the BC Clark Jewelry Company runs a holiday sale. They run it before Christmas, so between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
See, most sales are after Christmas, but theirs is just before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it turns out that if you grew up in the Oklahoma City area, you see this commercial quite often. It's a very catchy jingle. They have been doing this commercial for decades. And then they play that at the football games that are in November. And if you grew up in the Tulsa area, everyone around you will start singing along with the jingle, and you'll have no idea what's happening. Which did happen to me. And like multiple other people that I have talked to who are like from out of state or from like international students from other countries who are like, why does everyone know this song? It is quite catchy, I have to admit.
The
But
Tulsa to Oklahoma City cultural exchange that happened at is a fascinating phenomenon. And I married someone who grew up in the Oklahoma City area, and there were just times when she just mentioned things as like a cultural understanding. I'm like, okay, gotta stop and catch me up on this.
It truly is another country.
Okay. All right. Maybe a little extreme, but not untrue.
Also, I don't know if Mitch can hear this from afar, but I definitely found Cowboys Forever and downloaded it, and we'll be putting it in the episode.
The prairie wind touches our skin. Another maverick morning begins. Wild West.
The prairie wind touches our skin. Another maverick morning begins. Wild West eyes rise before the sun. We are young guns on the run. Hang 'em high, pistols to the sky. We ride, cross the line. Yeah, I definitely found it immediately, Mitch, and I'm going to put it in the episode.
Yeah, boy, I'm sorry.
It's a bad
I
song.
don't have access to the dark web, so I wasn't able to find it.
Basically, some guy came to Stillwater like 2010, wrote a bad song. They were going to use it as hype music, and the fans I remember being at football games and we would boo the song when it came on.
It was sort of the centerpiece of a whole new sort of marketing campaign and like series of logos, all kind of a big new kind of facelift for the iconography. And there was only one part of it that everybody was just collectively like, no. The only thing about it was this logo, alt logo they call Phantom Pete, which is like if you like took the mascot Pistol Pete and you taught him how to play Black Parade on piano.
It does look kind of sick though.
It's
Phantom Pete looks really cool.
They have since retired it, like they're not using it anymore. But it by itself was all right, kind of a black, kind of black colored Pistol Pete logo that I don't think had hair covering one eye, but he might as well have.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm looking at it. He sure does.
Hell. Well, the song was trash. Lyrics were terrible. Yeah. Melody was terrible. It was really, really bad song.
They were trying to tap into like the Americana country of that era, and it did not work. It did not land.
It felt so very inauthentic that I think that everybody immediately grabbed onto this is not of us, and therefore we reject it.
It felt like a song that like Ryan Tedder would write trying to write country music.
Well, it was such an industry plant. Like if it had gained like organic popularity, then I would get over the fact that it's not a good song. That's just called living in the world. But because it was
can't get over strawberry jelly, but you can get over a song.
That was before we were recorded.
I know. I'm still mad about it.
Don't have time, and I think some of your audience still likes it.
Oh man, no. I'm gonna subject the audience to Cowboys Forever, absolutely. For sure.
After the episode's released, I can't wait to find out whether that dude's litigious.
Okay, I think I don't know how we're feeling. I think my next question, unless there's anything else that we want to cover, would be like, Gundy is gone. OSU football continues. What's next for the program?
This is my exact next question. It's like we do this show together and have been friends for forever.
20 years, baby.
It is a real crossroads for the future of the program, because it's such a transitional moment for the sport writ large, financially, and a transitional moment for the program in terms of its success on the football field. And those two are so closely tied to one another. For a school like Oklahoma State, which is not a national name brand, which does not have a large TV market attached to it, and which no longer has a billionaire benefactor, they're going to have to find a way to compete on the football field soon, or really risk getting left behind in the shifting landscape of college football. Conferences realigned recently, and Oklahoma State remains in the Big 12, which is now an expanded conference, which has some teams left over from the old Big 12, but has added a lot of new teams, particularly from to their west, but also like University of Cincinnati and University of Central Florida as well. It's a very, very strange conference geographically right now. But conference realignment is probably not done. It's probably just kind of in a brief moment of temporary stasis, as there's just kind of nudging for power and nudging for advantage. Teams are now emboldened to make whatever move is most advantageous in that moment, even if it ignores decades-long regional relationships or loyalties. So we're right now in a fairly stable position in the Big 12, but that's not guaranteed forever. And the less competitive they are on the football field, the less somebody will want to bring us with them in whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So they need to do a couple of things soon. Obviously, they need to find stable head coaching who is adept and willing and eager to utilize NIL and athletes in the transfer portal to supplement the roster and to keep good players in town. And I have plenty of objections to the fact that that's the situation we're in, but right now that is the ticket to success in college football.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to find stable coaching, and they're going to need to start winning fast and keep good players in town.
Do you think that that's possible?
Yes, but I'm not optimistic about it happening. One of the things that made Mike Gundy a particularly fitting person to be the face and mascot of the program and university for 20 years is that because he's an alumni of the school and because he was a great athlete and was already baked into the fabric of the program, he stayed at that job a whole lot longer than most coaches of his caliber do.
Yeah.
In the landscape of college football, some jobs are destinations where career coaches are looking to end up, and some are stepping stones. And generally, Oklahoma State is a stepping stone. We've certainly improved over the last 30 years, but still not one of the premier names in college football, and not one of the premier salary positions in college football. And even Mike Gundy flirted with a couple of bigger programs during his tenure at Oklahoma State.
I was going to say, it was 3 or 4 years ago that there was like lots of talk about him.
And further back, when we were in school, he had a dalliance with Tennessee.
I remember.
Flirted with Arkansas, flirted with Florida, flirted with Baylor. You can say that was posturing to renew his contract, and maybe. But for the most part, a coach who would win as much as he won at Oklahoma State, those guys typically leave for bigger and better jobs within 5 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be a real challenge to find someone who isn't that, and we may have to suffer through a few of those. That happens to a lot of teams. We may have to suffer through a few coaches who are not there for the long haul, and it's really, really hard to maintain consistent culture and consistent recruiting success when you're constantly changing at the head coach position.
I mean, at the very least this year, it sounds like the program may be in a rough spot this year.
I mean, this year is a wash. They fired him on a Tuesday in September, and this is actually something I'd like to talk about. It's apparent that they had no expectations that this ship was going to be righted this year. I suspected when the year started that this would probably be Mike Gundy's final season coaching the team, because I didn't see any path to us being good this year. I never expected it would be announced as a firing in the middle of the season.
Do you think he would have, like, there was a world where he would have retired? Like, he would have read the tea leaves and just walked away?
No, and I suspect that that's probably what was offered to him. I have no information here. I'm not reporting anything, but
Yeah.
but my guess on the situation is that athletic director and university leadership approached him about announcing his retirement, or that he'd be stepping into an emeritus role or administrative role or an ambassador position, and that he'd be like, well, I'm going to coach out the season and then I'll take a step back. And but here's the thing, his contract includes a $15 million buyout. If he's fired before the conclusion of the contract, the university owes him $15 million. And I imagine, given his stubbornness and his ego, he probably pulled a big fellows and said, fuck you, pay me.
Yeah.
Because if he voluntarily retired, he would not be entitled to that buyout. And even though he's made a lot of money throughout his career and his life, it's $15 million. And so between the ego and the chance for getting the buyout, my guess is he said, if you want me out, you're going to have to fire me. And this athletic director appeared to be decisive. But
Yeah.
that really surprised me. Really surprised me.
I do have one last lingering question that is about the football program writ large, but not specifically about Gundy. So before I get to that, any other like last thoughts that like about like Gundy's career, or like what this like is this a sign of changes coming to college football on a larger scale, like that we're going to see more coaches being fired mid-season, like with this NIL, player empowerment? Like what's the impact more broadly?
I don't know whether it will result in more mid-season firings. It has already begun to weed out a lot of sort of institutional statesmen of the game. Some of whom are fired, some of whom are clearly saying, I don't want to operate in this new environment in college football, and I'm going to voluntarily leave. The best example of that is a name you've heard, which is Nick Saban. Nick Saban was the longtime coach at University of Alabama, universally agreed upon to be the best coach in the sport, several-time national champion. They were always competing for a championship. He's probably the single best coach in the history of college football, and he's in his 70s, but he voluntarily walked away a couple of years ago, and it seems pretty apparent that at least part of that decision was due to not liking the changing landscape of the game.
And shortly after, he went on vacation to Rome, and you know how I know? It's because I saw him at a restaurant next to the Trevi Fountain while he was there with his family.
Short King, was he wearing a straw hat?
No, he was not.
Dang, usually he's wearing a straw hat at practice, and I love that vibe.
No, but he walked into this restaurant, and me, not really being a sports guy, I was like, why do I know that guy's face? And I apparently said that out loud, and Jonathan turned around and said, that's Nick Saban. Fuck that guy.
There's a lot of ways in which Nick Saban reminds me of Dr. Stroop.
I see it.
In appearance, but there's kind of in the overall, like,
no, I understand.
Unquestioned command over your particular space. And yeah, we don't need to.
Dr. Stroop is our former choir director from college and also a pretty renowned choral composer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The one more thing is that there's another great college football coach who seems to be experiencing a similar decline to Mike Gundy, although a little bit less rapidly. And that's multiple time national champion Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He has been very vocal about, like, I don't want to use the transfer portal. We don't intend to use NIL to pay our players. He's a better recruiter than Mike Gundy and probably a better coach than Mike Gundy, so they're still winning a little bit. But so I think that coaches who are unwilling to change will soon be weeded out in whatever forms that ends up taking.
Okay.
Is this so? Actually, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of like how team recruitment is going wrong. Is it that like better players are just consolidating at universities that can afford to pay them? Or is it that there are players that are no longer playing, or that there's like new crops of players that are playing now?
Actually, what appears to be happening is the talent is getting a lot more spread out rather than consolidated.
Got it.
Schools are landing players they otherwise wouldn't have gotten before because they're players are making decisions more motivated by the money being offered than by the other traditional over-the-table legal incentives for recruiting, like preparation for playing in the NFL, or amount of playing time, or your chances of winning a championship. It's also worth noting players have been getting paid illegally.
Yeah, that's the thing.
For a long time. The idea of paying players is not new. The idea of paying players legally is new, and the money is growing, no doubt.
And this was, I don't even want to insinuate that this was paying players, but like players were getting certain benefits all along, even players that like were being recruited. I can think of like the recruitment team that we saw at football games all the time as students, right? Like, again, don't want to insinuate that there was anything untoward going on there, but like they were certainly towing lines.
Yeah.
No doubt. And there have been a few different scandals across college sports, football and basketball in particular, of those things definitely crossing lines. In Louisville in particular, there was a scandal that cost a head coach their job about like strippers being hired for recruiting.
I remember that story.
That guy is still coaching, by the way, just not at that school.
Is it creating a dynamic, like my best context because of the person that I am for like how I think about this is like, is it creating a dynamic like with orchestras where you hire the best soloist, but they're not necessarily the best ensemble player, right? And so like, is it creating a dynamic where like teams are bringing on these really great players, but then their program can't support that player because they are like, they have a 1-star player, but not a bench of people who can then like actually make that player.
The term for what
successful?
You're talking about in sports we use is depth.
Okay.
That at a particular position before this new era of NIL payments and the open transfer portal, it would be the really, really top schools in college football. So your Oklahomas, Alabamas, Ohio States, the top tier programs, they would have the ability to where like at a particular position group, their bench, the guys who aren't playing that much, would be guys who are definitely going to go to the NFL. Guys who are definitely pros who can't really get on the field at their school because there's so many good players. Because the track record had shown, if I go to this school, I'll play, I'll get noticed, and I'll play in the NFL. Whereas if I say instead of choosing Alabama, if I choose to go to University of Texas, El Paso, I'll play from day one, but ain't no one going to watch. And the coaching staff is not as well equipped to prepare me for the National Football League. Now, Texas El Paso has a better ability to say, yeah, we might not send you to the NFL as guaranteed as Alabama will, but you can make money now. Why wait till the NFL where you'll get drafted, and then maybe over the course of a 2.5-year, 3-year career, you'll accumulate $6 million, and a quarter of that will go to your agent, or we'll pay you $80,000 this season. And a lot of players are, for a variety of valid reasons, are taking the bag immediately. And so talent is being more spread out across the country. And so teams which can accumulate depth, but not, or used to be able to accumulate depth, but not the top tier talent, they're really suffering. And Oklahoma State's a good example of this.
Is this hurting the NFL at all? No.
At least not financially. The NFL is growing more and more popular every single year. And there's always good players, and they all those teams employ armies and armies of scouts to watch every single level of football. And sometimes they are right about their player evaluation. They're often wrong about their player evaluation. But the NFL is more profitable and popular than ever.
Okay. Well, my last question is, how do you feel about the end of Bedlam? No Bedlam this year.
And no Bedlam last year either.
Oh, last year. Okay, last year was the first year.
For the listeners, Bedlam is the name for the historical athletics rivalry between the two major state schools in Oklahoma. So Oklahoma State University and the University of Oklahoma. And in football, this rivalry historically is incredibly lopsided as far as the overall record. If they played every year for the rest of my life and Oklahoma State won all of those games for the rest of my life, Oklahoma State would still be trailing in the overall series record.
We did win the last one, though.
However, we won 2 of the last 3, including the final one. So if you're asking me how I feel about Bedlam lifetime champions Oklahoma State University, I feel pretty fucking great about it. Thanks for asking. What was satisfying about that is that I was at that game in 2023. That was one of those years when no one expected OSU to be good, and they ended up being pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. And beat OU with a quarterback that none of us thought was good. And OU had a quarterback who was now in the NFL and was a Heisman finalist last year.
Yeah.
And came into Stillwater and walked away empty-handed. That is my number one Boone Pickens Stadium memory. Is that game, because the whole time it was close the whole game, but we always felt like, okay, at some point some bullshit's going to happen because it always happens, and we're going to lose this game. I've seen this movie 1,000 times.
The poke choke. We didn't even say that it was called that earlier, but that's
and some people call it. I don't have time to get into this, but some people call it squinky. Squinky is just kind of the name for just the weird universal forces that seem to step in and fuck with OSU's luck.
I've never heard that one.
That's largely a product of the Pistols Firing podcast.
okay.
The definitive OSU commentary podcast. But the whole game, I was like, well, this is all well and good, but something's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, the final minute of the game, OSU is leading, and OU fails to convert on 4th down. And it's a turnover on downs, and Oklahoma State is kneeling the ball to win. I'm like, wait, what just happened? Well, literally, what just happened? And it was marvelous. And then 2 years before that, a really, really excellent Oklahoma State team beat a really, really excellent OU team, including their starting quarterback, who would go on to win the Heisman and go on to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL, and we beat him too. So that's good. So the Bedlam game has caused me a lot of strife over the course of my life, but I really, really enjoyed the few times I've gotten to watch OSU win that game, often in very dramatic, surprising fashion. And the most recent one was particularly satisfying because it was the final one. Since OU moved to the SEC conference, that series has been, at least for the time being, discontinued.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with
it. Okay. I'm glad that you got a storybook ending. If it had to end, yes, storybook middle finger ending.
I have a gray OSU sweater with the final score of that game on it. and I have a black OSU t-shirt that just says, "Well, bye," which is a quote from Tombstone.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time that OSU fans and OSU, the team, generally, like, we lose one game and then that's the season. Like, that's just like everyone assumes it's over. I also tell people all the time that we don't win games anymore because I'm not at them to go pee when we get a touchdown.
Move back, get Matt back 2 games. Mitch is like over here
taking notes. Was that not
notes.
a thing, Mitch, when we were in college? Every time I'd go pee?
That was a thing. I was just sitting here thinking about how the bathroom near my section of Boone Pickens Stadium now always smells like warm corn tortillas because it's right behind the taco concession stand. It's not pleasant.
We gotta. That's gotta be the end. That's gotta be the end.
Let it go. Mitch, I use he, him pronoun.
Oh man.
I think that's a show.
I think we did it. I think that's the show. Thanks, Mitch, for joining us again.
It was great to talk to you.
Thanks for giving us all of your Oklahoma State knowledge. Would you like to be found on the internet at all? And if so, where?
Sure. I am on Instagram at Mitch McGrew. I don't post a whole lot, but I am there. And I'm on TikTok, but not really posting, mostly just lurking.
People will see next season your OK State hype posts in your stories.
I did not do that this year, and I don't think I'm going to do that next year. I kind of had a feeling.
Yeah. The writing was on the wall.
Uh-huh.
AC, where can people find you?
You can find me on the internet at acfachi.com and on Blue Sky at whatever the URL slug is, because I've forgotten it, but it's just at acfachi. And I know that the website still works because I just paid to renew it. So find me there.
You can find me at matthorton.live. If you're listening, I feel like if you listen to this show, you probably are already a person who's subscribed to my YouTube, but I did move my YouTube over to youtube.com/@flowstatecrit. Complicated reasons. Go listen to Brendan's episode on Wavelength with me about why I did that. There's a 2-hour discussion in there about that. You can also find the show at can'tletitgo.gay, and you can find us on Blue Sky at can'tletitgo.gay. We are a member of The Worst Garbage. You can find The Worst Garbage at theworstgarbage.online, where you will find a bunch of other shows, including the newest Trails Through Trails with my friend and collaborator Lex.
Yeah.
You can join us. You can find the Can't Let It Go channel in that Discord. And I want to thank Scout for our art. You can pay her to make you some art at ko-fi.com/humblegoat. Also, Scout, my co-host on In Sequence. And thanks also to Ethan, Revolver Ocelot on Blue Sky, for our music. And we will talk to you next month.
Bye.
Go Cowboys.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.